Okay, Insidious 3. So I saw this last Friday, and I came into this hoping it would be good, but I just wasn't quite sure. I liked Insidious 1 a lot, and I thought Insidious 2 was decent. I actually liked it more than a lot of people. I thought Insidious 2 was a fine movie, actually. I really can't say I disliked it, but I'll admit that Insidious 2 was a step down from the first one. And not to mention, it came out the same year as The Conjuring. James Wan was James Wan was just really busy that year, and The Conjuring was awesome. And Insidious 2 came out not too long after that, and again, just a step down from both The Conjuring and Insidious. But with all that said, I would still say that Insidious 2 was a pretty decent movie. But I just wasn't sure about this one. Not to mention, James Wan did not direct Insidious 3, and instead he's producing it. And he also produced Annabelle, which I was not the biggest fan of. So I just wasn't sure. Not to mention it's a prequel, and I mean, it's funny. A lot of people, are sketchy they're sketched out when it comes to sequels coming out, because most of the time, yes, sequels do not work. But prequels, I mean, 90% of the time, prequels suck. That's just a fact. So going into this, I was optimistic, but I just wasn't sure. I just couldn't get too excited for it. But with that said, Insidious 3, I thought was, honestly, I would put it on the same level as Insidious 2. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. Not great, not terrifying, not as good as the first one, but you know what? This was all right. I didn't regret seeing it. There were some scary moments. I wasn't bored watching it. I didn't get frustrated. There are some pretty predictable and lame jump scares that are just not creative in the least bit. But you know what? There was also some really good, genuinely creepy moments. There was some scary characters. There were some scary, memorable moments. Things that that I couldn't get out of my head later that night when I was trying to sleep. And like the other two Insidious movies, it was flowing with atmosphere, memorable atmosphere, creepy atmosphere. There were likable characters, and it was an easy story to follow. But at the same time, it wasn't like from beginning to end a cliche, predictable story. But it was just a fun little horror story. And it doesn't focus on the Patrick Wilson storyline, but it still worked. It still felt like an Insidious film, despite that. And you know what? I'll even say this. Some of the jump scares, even though most of them sucked, there were some good jump scares too. Ones I thought were actually pretty genuine and well done, like the first Insidious. So with that said, yeah, you know what? It wasn't as good as the first Insidious. I would say it's about on the same line as the second one. It wasn't as good as The Conjuring, but I would still recommend it. Just, if you like the second one, I'd say I would definitely recommend checking it out. It's a fun, it'd be a fun weekend, late night movie to check out with friends if you're into horror films. Yeah, I'd recommend it. I'd give it a C plus. It was a fun little horror film. It had some down moments, again, some of the cliche jump scares, but I'd still say it did a pretty good job making up for that by being genuinely creepy enough. So, and also, I believe this is actually the director's debut. This filmmaker has done a lot of stuff with James Wan, including the previous Insidious films, but this was his first directorial film. So I thought he did a pretty fine job. Again, I thought it fit in pretty well with the other two Insidious films. So yeah, it's really just that simple. I'd say go see it. So that's my review of Insidious 3. Thanks for listening.